news, politics, culture, current events. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground.
Yeah, so sorry we're missing the VP debate while we record this, but I'll watch that back.
What a loss, dude. I don't know how I'll recover from that.
Yeah. Well, how you guys doing?
Assholes.
Otherwise.
Pretty good,
right?
dude.
Good, man. Chill.
Nice. Well, we're going to talk about COVID today in our 6th episode here on the Different Views, Common Grounds podcast. Today I'm joined by Ralphy Nades, got Walter Sobchak, and Donny Nix is back as well. So a nice rotation of guest hosts. So I'm liking this collection we're building right now. We can only top this if we can get like our significant others in here, but I think that's going to be a little while before I can do that. Yeah.
Long shot, dude.
I was trying to think of like what their names could be. As like, all I can think of is like, Sarah Thatcher or like Hillary Palin. You know.
I was thinking parasailing.
Oh, that's parasailing. That's a good one.
It's also a verb.
It's got dual context.
It does.
Well, anyway, we've had to put this episode off like 3 straight weeks, our COVID episode, because new shit keeps happening. And like I was saying in the chat, it's just like the news cycle so rapidly refreshing that like anytime we want to talk about something, it just seems like old news like 2 days later. But we're going to talk about COVID right now. I think up front, we probably all mostly are in the same boat about it, but we'll get into that. But I just want to start off by seeing how you guys have kind of just coped with the past 8 months, working from home or quarantining, social distancing. We're all kind of in different parts of the country, so it's definitely being handled differently in our states. So just curious how you guys have handled it, and if you've made any changes to your lifestyle during this time that you think you'll continue.
I mean, not much has changed, honestly. And I'm in a state where the lockdown was probably the most intense next to New York, So, like, things are starting to open up now, but at the thick of it, it was a pretty intense lockdown. You couldn't really go to restaurants, or the only thing you really go to are, like, grocery stores, pretty much, and, like, get gasoline in your car. But I mean, the roads were real empty, and it was kind of weird. It's kind of eerie. But not much, honestly, has changed. I mean, I've been working from home. I used to travel quite a bit, going to site, doing site surveys. I'd manage projects out of the Washington, D.C. area. Every other week or so, I'd be down there with the team. All that's mobile now, and it's been working so far. I mean, we're still productive, and we're still busy, and productivity hasn't really slowed or anything like that. So I don't, as far as like work is concerned, I think you're going to see a lot of companies, a lot of offices that are just going to continue doing this mobile, working from home thing. It doesn't make any sense to, have such a high overhead with office space and stuff like that if your employees could do everything that they normally do at home. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of like the old school way of thinking, like, you got to have your manager on your ass watching over you. You got to be in the office. That's the only time you're productive, is in the office. And I think what people are starting to see is, well, I actually think people are actually more productive when they're home and not being hounded and not being watched over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Ralphie? And Donny, you're in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to double check.
Mm-hmm.
For me, honestly, my company that I work for was like really opposed to working from home. Like it's been brought up in the past before this whole COVID thing, and they've been really resistant to it. They like the whole in-office culture. You know, they always talk about culture, work culture, all that bullshit.
Stupid.
But to give them some credit, once this pandemic came around, they changed their tune real quick. They gave everybody laptops, and within like 2 or 3 days, everybody was working from home efficiently. So it's been a big change for me. Different from Donny's experience. Like it's been completely different for me. But I like it. Working from home is cool. Overall, I could do this forever, to be honest. Sometimes I find myself wanting to go to the office, but not really. Working from home is cool.
Yeah.
For me, probably one of the negative things about it is just being home 24/7 and being with my wife 24/7.
Uh-oh.
It's been a lot more arguments and like
Parasailing, put the earmuffs on when you listen to this.
So there's definitely been an increase in arguments, I would say. Just not being able to get like away from it. You know what I mean? So I kind of find myself like missing that part of work, like just being away from home, just kind of getting a break from like the same old shit. You know what I mean? So I got mixed feelings about it, but overall, it hasn't been that. I can't complain. I still have my job. Still working full time. Company's been good about it, so it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't really. For me, it hasn't been that bad, to be honest.
Nice. Walter?
Yeah, just like Donny and Ralphie here, I would say overall it's been pretty dope. Working from home is dope. I love it. I'm pretty introverted overall, so sitting around doing nothing but hiking and kind of hanging out has been really great. To kind of piggyback off of what Donny was saying about office space, so I work for a commercial real estate company, so I actually worked there for only 10 more days. I put in my notice because I'm going to be moving to a different industry, but I guess once that process is over and I'm officially out, I would love to kind of explain more from the inside of a commercial real estate company as to how they're seeing what's going and possibly what the future will be. But it's probably not good. It's probably not good for that industry, just to summarize. But who knows? As far as the virus itself, my mother contracted it very early on. I would say early March. We all went to a wake for a good family friend. And I was telling her even before that, she was going to see him in the hospital because he was a very close friend. I called her up because she has COPD. She's been like a smoker her whole life. So that puts her at high risk.
Wow.
I was calling her and telling her, like, don't go to the hospital. Like, it's probably in the hospital already. This was like, I think March 8th or 9th or something. And she got all pissed at me. And she's like, obviously, basically her friend was on life support and she wanted to be there for the family and all that. And then we think what happened, either somebody had it at the hospital or somebody had it at the wake that we all attended briefly after. I felt like shit around the same time she contracted it for about 5 days or so. I didn't have a lot of the symptoms that people attribute to it. Like, I never broke a fever. I had crazy body aches, like when you get the flu. I was very fatigued, kind of laying around a lot, some trouble breathing, but I never got the test because I figured I'm going to be fine most likely. And it was hard to get a test at that time. And I didn't want to waste one on me if I didn't necessarily need it. So, but my mother was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and she was really sick. Like, she couldn't talk or anything. And she couldn't be there with anybody. So she would just send me a text like once every couple of days. Just, that was like the only way that I knew that she was like alive and still hanging on. It was pretty stressful, man. Like, I'm not going to lie. It was very touch and go there. And then she came home. She had oxygen for a while. My stepdad and my brother also got it. And then, once they got better, there was sort of like a weight lifted where they were like, well, we had it already and we're kind of immune as far as we can tell for now. So in some ways, I'm happy that they got it over with early on. But I guess it could have been worse than it was. So as far as my own work experience, I was saying to my fiance, like, one of the reasons I was able to buy this house is because of the pandemic. Like, there's definitely been winners and losers, unfortunately. And I'm just going to straight up admit that I was a winner because all the student loans got halted. That ended up saving me about $1,200 a month. And I still had my job. So I was very fortunate throughout this whole thing. I didn't lose any family members. I actually financially gained money from the whole thing, and I got to work from home. So as shitty as it is, this virus has been pretty cool. Not for the people who have died, but on a surface level, I got to admit.
I mean, you got a house out of it.
Exactly.
Lower interest rates, really helped people
Rates are
buy
great
houses.
right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with me, and I'll never live this down with her, but back in like January or maybe like early February, before like coronavirus was a huge thing, it was like kind of just starting, and I straight up told my girlfriend, it's not a big deal thing, and she was the opposite. She's like, no, this is like, you got to take it seriously. Like, we should be worried about this. And I was like, it's not going to happen. The same thing happened with SARS. And I'm never going to live that down. Like, she'll bring that up on a weekly basis, which rightfully so. Yeah, for me, I think it's a little different because in California, a lot of the industries have had more of a relaxed work from home type of environment, at least, because a lot of the startups out here, they favor that environment, and that's how they really attract talent to work here. So my company really that I work for now really wasn't like that historically, but pretty much immediately when the pandemic started, they're like, okay, everyone's working from home, and they put a timeline saying no one's even going to come back into the office till at least 2021, like really early on, not even waiting, which I thought was really good. It just showed me that they took it seriously. And like Donny said, working from home, the productivity actually probably increased. I think it's kind of leveled out. There was kind of like there's a little sharp increase, and then it decreases a little bit where it kind of levels out. But yeah, it's been, working from home has been all right. But then also kind of like what you were saying, Ralphie, I do find myself wanting to go in to the office sometimes just to kind of get out of the house. And I think California, I mean, for sure took things way stricter than Florida. I'm not sure about New Jersey because you guys are near that epicenter there in New York City. But everything was shut down here, so there really wasn't much you could do except for like go out hiking and do stuff outdoors in the beginning. Now they've kind of started outdoors dining and some like indoor dining with like enough space between and stuff. But like, you're not going to go to a concert or anything like that anytime soon. Quarantining here, it sucked, especially being so far away from my family. It's good that you were able to be there for yours, Walter. But I can't imagine like, if someone in my family got sick from this and I'm 2,000-3,000 miles away from them, not able to get home. And like you said, when people are sick with it, at least early on, they're not even allowing people to go in and visit them. I mean, people were dying and they could not say goodbye to their loved ones. Like, their loved ones could not say bye to them. They maybe would allow one person in the room, but the rest could only do it through FaceTime. So you had husbands and wives, children, grandchildren saying bye to their loved ones through FaceTime at best through this. And I think that's the real tragedy that we've seen over the whole course of this, is that it's not only killing people, but it's taking it to a level where you don't really even get those final moments with your loved ones. And it really happens suddenly. I mean, I don't know what that experience was like for your mom, Walter, but how long did it take before maybe you thought it was contracted when she went into the hospital versus when those symptoms started and when she started feeling ill? What was that time frame like?
Yeah, like, we knew that she was high risk, and I think it was maybe 2 days since she was feeling bad that she called 911 the first time. She was having a lot of trouble breathing. So basically people came in like hazmat suits to my parents' house. I didn't live there at the time, but my brother told me all about it. They came in, they took her temperature. She did go to the hospital in an ambulance, and she was there for a few days, and they sent her home because I think they were antsy to get people out. And then like we've been hearing lately about Trump, well, it might come back in waves. That is exactly what happened with her too. She was home for a few more days, and then it got worse where she was like really couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. So then they came back and took her again, and she ended up staying for, I think, I don't know if it was 10 days or so before she was home. But yeah, she told me a crazy story about when she was in there. Like, so the nurses had these regulations, like they were only allowed to be in there, like, I don't know, 5 minutes. There was a timer on the wall, basically. And what happened was the nurses went in to like treat her, and they were playing around with her IV or whatever. And one of the nurses like fucked up the IV. And so blood started like squirting everywhere. And at that moment, like the timer ran out, and the nurses were like, oh, and then they had to just leave. And so she had like blood all over her like gown and bed for like 12 hours until they were allowed to come back in. So yeah, it was pretty pretty traumatizing for her experience.
Yeah.
I'd say.
That's
I can imagine.
That's too far, guys. Like,
I would have passed
seriously.
out, dude. Straight up.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand you want to be cautious and you want to, take the proper precautions, but that's too far. I mean, how are you gonna just like abandon your post and let something like that happen just because a timer went off? That's ridiculous.
I think knowing what we know now, that's absurd. I think back then, like early March, it was still so much like we really had no idea how deadly it was. So people were really trying to cover their own asses. But looking back on it now, it seems so crazy. Yeah.
Supplies then. So like every time they leave a room, you got to take it off and you throw that out and you re-up with whatever protective gear, PPE you need. But like, that time there was a shortage. But yeah, Donnie, it does make sense. Like if someone's just bleeding on the gown and you don't do anything with them for 12 hours, that's got to be traumatizing. I mean, it kind of shows like how prepared we were for this. And we weren't. I mean, everyone took it lightly. People still take it lightly 8 months later. So it's tragic. Yeah, my girlfriend works in healthcare, so in like speech specifically, and so she's been able to experience it from the inside working there. And I remember the first few months she was working her ass off, hectic, in and out of all these facilities. We socially distanced from each other for like over a month almost. I can't imagine like being a patient in there. And I know like one of the things that is very dangerous and kind of going back to that time frame is there's a lot of unknowns about the disease. So like I think like one of the things that it's really doing is people get sick from COVID and maybe they'll heal, but then their lungs are like Swiss cheese after. It's just like if you look on an X-ray, they just have Swiss cheese lungs, and then or they'll get infections somewhere else in their body. You'd have people, having all these different symptoms, which is not always COVID itself, but it weakens your immune system, and then you catch sepsis, which is basically just a blood infection that almost always kills you. And I think that's what is also affecting a lot of people. What are you guys' thoughts on how our government handled it initially, both from the federal level, also at your state level? I know we kind of touched on that a little bit, but what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that they were prepared? Do you think they've taken it seriously? Do you think what could they have done more to help?
On a state level, I think it was handled quite well. It's probably over protective, quite frankly, and New York is even still has some pretty strict laws and guidelines, especially people who are coming out of state. It's like a whole list of folks that you must quarantine, and they're actually like checking people, like have checkpoints and looking at licenses. Hey, did you quarantine for 14 days? And starting to fine people and stuff. So I mean, they're super vigilant. Jersey's lightened up a little bit. You could do indoor dining, but that 14-day quarantine is still in effect for people from different states. I think Florida is one of them.
Of course.
Uh,
How do you even enforce that though? Like, because people can just drive. It's not like we have borders between our states, I think that's just such a struggle.
I think it's when people fly in. I think they're like given like a form, and I think they're like recorded or something. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
It's impossible to completely enforce. You know what I mean? It's more of a good faith type of thing. But there is instances, and I've heard some reports on the radio that they're like New York, especially, they're starting to like do checkpoints and like find people who are not following these guidelines. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
As far as the federal level is concerned, you mentioned before like having a shortage of PPE. To me, it still blows my mind in the country that has everything that we couldn't get the stuff that we needed. You know what I mean? And we're talking like gloves and masks. Like pretty simple rudimentary stuff. This virus wasn't taken seriously. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, like January, February. I mean, I was in freaking Japan in February, and I was just like, whatever. I never wore a mask. I didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? Because I thought it was just like, it's just like a flu. You get sick, you get over it, and you move on. I didn't take it seriously, and I know for a fact that federal government, especially our fearless leader, definitely didn't take it seriously. He still doesn't. So we weren't prepared on a federal, nationwide level because it wasn't taken seriously. It's just like, it's in Wuhan and it'll stay there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to come here. And I kind of like that good old American arrogance. And sure enough, here it is. So I think we're caught like flat-footed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, without having a leader in charge who's not taking it seriously, it just kind of like, there weren't any. Doesn't seem like there was any like panic button that could have been pressed, any sort of plan that was presented, and if there was, it was a little too late. People are getting sick, like Walter's mom, and only 5-minute visits, and people are watching their loved ones die over FaceTime. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. I think if we took this shit a little more seriously and had like a plan, some sort of contingency plan in place, a lot of those tragedies could have been avoided or mitigated at least.
So, like on a federal level, I guess to be fair to the U.S. government, we've never really had a pandemic like this before. This is like a first for us. Whereas if you go to like China or Japan, anywhere out east, like they've been through SARS, they've been through MERS. They've had their pandemics, so they know kind of how to operate and how to handle it. Whereas this is like our first experience with it. So I'll just start with that as a little disclaimer, I guess. But yeah, I think it was handled very poorly. We had such a shortage of the PPE, the masks and the gowns or whatever these nurses are using to protect themselves. I mean, we had a shortage to such an extent that the CDC had to lie about the effectiveness of masks, so that people didn't go and like panic and buy out all the masks, so that medical professionals would have them. Like that's probably like the lowest point of how we handled this, in my opinion. Because once the CDC said that, they said that masks are not effective in fighting the virus or avoiding the spreading of the virus. I think once they said that and then changed their mind later on, I think that's when a lot of people just kind of lost faith in the CDC, and that's where your anti-maskers come from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of the reason why there's just no trust in masks or any of the preventative measures, really.
With this limiting regular citizens from buying masks, like why are regular citizens within the same categories of first line? You know what I mean? For people on the front lines, like shouldn't they get dibs? Like shouldn't there be like an alternate avenue where your nurses and your doctors and your surgeons can always have access to the stuff that they need, and the citizens, the normal guys like us, get the leftovers, or they go through a separate alternative path? Like, why is it a competition between first responders and us? You know what I mean? I feel like that's a huge failing on the government. The government could have, said, hey, mask maker, 3M, whatever, whoever they're getting the masks from, you are going to sell these masks to your nurses first. They come priority. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually goes back to the sort of the conversation we had last week with Kipper about the free market versus government intervention. So it's not profitable for somebody to just sit on a warehouse full of masks. No company is going to do that because there's no profit in it for them. So that's a clear case for how sometimes the government needs to step in and say, okay, we have to prepare for something, so we're going to incentivize people to stockpile these resources because, like what you're describing, it's supply and demand, right? So the normal supply of masks is this high, so they'll make this many, but all of a sudden the demand is shooting through the roof, and everybody's grasping at the few masks that we have. So it's a good anti-libertarian case, I think, this PPE shortage.
Should be, in theory.
Even if you agree with the libertarian mindset, they're not anarchists, right? Like they still believe in some level of government. And when should that come into place? Well, when there's a national emergency like this. Like that is, and it's kind of again like what we talked about last week. And I don't want to talk about Kipper's points when he's not here to defend them, but like the supply and demand part, like you were saying, Walter, it shouldn't even have been. It should have just been given that these hospitals and healthcare workers had masks. Like we have them now. Like we're able to get them now. Why weren't we able to get this back in the beginning of it? What happened to those first two months or so where there was a shortage? And I think also, to Kipper's point, people did see a demand for it, and now there probably are a lot more people selling masks. I think it did have some impact, but it's like, where was this in the beginning? And it goes back to like what you guys were saying, like the national government really failed. I mean, they got rid of that pandemic response team like last year that probably could have had some prepared plans for this. Then they, called it a fucking hoax in the beginning. They called it a hoax. Even before the no masks things, they were calling it a hoax. And so that's where you have all these people, the base that's, anti-COVID doesn't exist, anti-mask, half of them don't even believe it's a thing. They think the numbers are skewed. They're lying about the numbers. And whenever I hear that, I'm just like, who are you going to believe? If you're not going to believe the scientists who admittedly, the CDC did mess up by saying no, masks don't help. If they were even just more honest about it, that would have had a better reputation. But who do you believe? Like, if you're not going to believe the scientists, what's your reasoning for why the alternative is true? And I can't see that. I think it's been a colossal failure from our federal government. I think that the stimulus package that they passed, which was aimed to help people, they passed one stimulus bill back in like April. That you get $1,200, $1,600, somewhere around that range, if you made $75,000 a year or less. If you made more than that, then it was incrementally diminished. But that was 6 months ago, and you have people out of jobs, losing work because they're getting sick, or their business is closing down because there was no support from this. So I think the national government failed. Local governments, I think, have handled it better. I think out of necessity because they weren't getting much, federal aid. But I'm really curious, Ralphie, about your experience in Florida because, I mean, they're basically 100% open now. What are your thoughts? How do you even go outside in Florida and feel safe is what I want to know.
Well, I want to go back a little bit just to go to the why the CDC lied about the mask effectiveness. I can see why they did that. Because just, for example, just living in Florida, and I'm sure this is a national issue, but whenever it's hurricane season and they're talking about how a hurricane's coming in, everybody goes into this ridiculous, outrageous fucking panic state where they have to buy like 18 cases of water and like fill their car up with gas and then like bring gasoline tanks to the gas stations to fill up gas in case, the gas stations close down. Like, people go into this outrageous panic state, and within hours, everything's gone. There's no water, there's no gas, like you can't get anything. And you kind of saw that with COVID too. Like, there was no meat in the supermarket, there's no toilet paper. I'm talking about months we went without toilet paper, dude. Like, I had to get it from other people who somehow had a stock. Like, we literally couldn't find it anywhere. It was outrageous.
Was that bad?
It was bad, dude. It was really bad. I don't know if it's just Floridians, but they fucking lose their minds over shit like this.
They're
They're so dumb.
preparers.
So
They're better doomsday preppers.
Maybe. I just think
For
they
the
go too
hurricanes.
hard, though. Like, if everyone just kept buying the regular amount of shit, like, everyone would be fine. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
that's the whole Trump excuse, though. I just don't want to create a panic.
Yeah. I know. Which I don't really agree with, dude. But
He creates tons of panics, dude, all the time. It's total nonsense. He makes it seem like Chicago is burning like every other minute. So he's down to create panic. I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah.
But to go back to the way Florida handled it, it's been terrible. It's been abysmal. I remember, I think it was like around May or June, which is not long after this, the virus started actually spreading in the country. Our governor decided to just open everything up, like open up all the bars, open up all the restaurants. And I'm looking at it right now, like you can literally see the graph just spike in coronavirus cases and deaths immediately after he made that decision. And it doesn't go down. It's like still, it stays up there. It goes down a little bit, but as soon as we started opening up, everything just got shitty.
I'm still blown away that Disney World is open. Like, I saw a video of like some Star Wars dance off, and the first thing that came to mind is like, why the fuck are people even at Disney World right now to begin with?
Open, dude. They've been open for a
They've been open for a little while.
Yeah. Yep. Like since around like June, like I said. And right now, just recently, like up to this point, the restaurants they've been required to operate at like 50% capacity. And we've actually gone out to a couple of restaurants. It kind of feels safe when they're at 50%. Like, there's definitely 6 feet of distance. I mean, we don't go out a lot, but we definitely went out a little bit. But just recently, we went out after they changed it to 100%, and that restaurant was packed, dude. And I've never felt more unsafe in my life. I was like, we can't go out anymore. Like, we're gonna fucking get it. We're gonna fucking get it.
You're gonna get it.
So I
It's scary.
predict that we're gonna get a second wave, I think, just because of that.
I mean, we're still like riding like the first wave. It feels like it never really went down, like you said. Like, it did briefly, but then it just went right back up.
And another thing I want to point out or talk about is the federal government and Congress. Their first instinct when this shit hit the fan and all the cases were happening and people were losing their jobs, businesses are closing, the first thing they do is bail out all the corporations. That's their instinct. So to me, that just shows that the government's priority is not average people. It's not small businesses. It's not, the little guy. It's corporations and the big guys. That's all they fucking care about, dude. That's all. And that's both sides. Even Bernie and AOC voted for that shit. So
those corporations have gained money through this pandemic. They've increased their value, like Bezos, Facebook, all those. They've kind of like you, Walter. I was saying companies like Amazon.
Wait, what?
It was beneficial for Amazon, just like it was for
you.
you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And crickets here.
Sorry, I didn't follow that.
No, it's all right.
But what I was going to say is even the stuff that is designed for like your average Joe, companies found out a way to take advantage of it. Like my company, they basically figured out. So there's this thing, right, where it's like anybody who has reduced hours because of COVID-19 is eligible for the, $600 a week or whatever. So my company immediately, they didn't waste any time. They figured out, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all our salaried employees, we're going to drop them down to 30 hours a week, and they're going to apply for unemployment, and they're going to get the government money. They're going to actually, most of them end up making more money because 25% of their salary is probably equivalent to $600 a week, and we get to save the money. So basically, something that was designed to help people. Immediately, a large national company figured out, okay, I'm going to gobble that up and I'm going to take on that money for myself and for my own savings. It's and I'm sure many companies did the same exact thing. So it's ridiculous. It's a little bit absurd.
That's
I love
absurd.
how it's I love how it's like the blame is always on like, oh, these people on welfare in the inner cities and this and that. The companies are doing just that, dude. They're worse. They're worse. They're taking full advantage on a grander scale.
You know, I kind of want to lead into that, like how this is at play, how COVID has played an impact on the economy, both, you know, from a macro level, but also the small business area. I think I saw it was like 60% of the businesses that closed down during this pandemic are closed permanently, which is a huge number. I mean, it's over half those businesses, and those people are, you know, losing their livelihoods. And, you know, I kind of maybe sat here and defended that like a few weeks ago with the racial protests and stuff. It is sad. I mean, it's like those are the places that should have been getting this bailout money, not American Airlines, not, you know, Amazon or these companies. Right. It should have been going directly into the community. And I think part of that is if you actually give the people, and this is where I have a big thing against like the whole trickle down Reaganomics thing. If you would have given people more money from that stimulus bill, they would have gone to those small businesses and purchased goods from them. I have never seen such a big small business push in my life as I've seen these past few months, as far as getting people to go actually shop at these small businesses. I mean, Amazon's always going to do well, and I think if you would have just given people more money, those small businesses, more of them would have survived. There still would have been impact, but more of them would have been able to keep their doors open. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, the stocks are good. I mean, I invested earlier on in this, and it's helped me out. It's not, and it's all you can do. I mean, kind of sad though.
To be fair, also they did do the student loan thing, which I was stoked about, and they also, I didn't even know about this until I was looking into buying a house, but basically like mortgages are basically on hold as well. Like you can just delay your mortgage, I think through, I don't even know how long. I know it's definitely through the end of the year, which is part of the reason why the price of houses went shooting up too. But I think that's at least something, you know, at least if you did lose your job, obviously it's better to just get money directly, but at least people
are. Student loan thing, I forgot about that. That's a good point. I've still been trying to pay it off a little bit just because there's no interest on it, so you just get that down. But it has been hugely helpful to have that cut out.
Was that a Trump thing, or was that was that voted on in Congress?
I don't remember. Let me look. I think it's part of the stimulus.
Worth looking.
It's part of that.
Yeah, CARES Act, whatever it's called.
My dad told me that it was all Donald Trump, but I don't believe him. He called me up and he was like, you know, Trump paused all your student loans, right? I was like, wow, I didn't know he did that personally.
Oh, and those banks, they don't need it either. That's the sad thing. They're doing fine right now.
No, Bezos doesn't need a break. Are you kidding me?
They don't fucking need our student loan money anyway. They should just be wiped
Bezos.
out.
He never needs a fucking break, cocksucker.
No, dude.
He's always looking for one.
Fuck that guy. I hate that guy so much, dude.
Yeah,
greedy motherfucker, dude.
Oh, he probably loved this pandemic. Everyone's ordering TP on Amazon now.
Of course he loves it, dude.
Yeah, premium.
I don't get the TP run. This is what I was saying.
Oh my god, dude.
In the pandemic, my instinct was like, I'm going to buy a big 10-pound bag of rice because
if I shit more during the pandemic, like what's the thing, dude? Like,
dude, I was saying like I'll use my hand if I have to, bro. Like I want to eat. I don't give a fuck about toilet paper. Like give me a towel, a bathroom towel or something. I'll be fine, dude. Like I don't need
I
don't get
it. Like
I could not find
it. What is gonna happen? Like you're just gonna like I don't understand. I just don't get it. Like one of the symptoms to COVID, and correct me if I'm wrong, Walter, is not shitting your brains out, correct? So like what was that a symptom?
I think it was actually.
Fuck off.
Gastrointestinal distress, I think, which, you know, interpret that however you want.
All right. Well, there goes my
Like what?
That's like every morning for me, dude.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. It was driving me nuts, especially like in the March and
Why? Yeah, I have
April.
no clue why.
You can't get freaking toilet paper. You couldn't even get paper towels. I guess people or napkins. I guess people were like, "Oh, well, I ran out of toilet paper. I'm gonna use napkins." You know, like it's nuts. It was crazy for a little while, and then people started to get the what are they called? The little hoses. Yeah, and they sold out of those. You know, you couldn't even get those. You know, it's like, oh my god.
The days are the shit, though. To be honest, America does it all wrong, dude.
I have one. It's pretty sweet.
Do you?
Yeah.
Were you one of the ones that bought one then? During that time?
No, I bought after the Japan trip. It's like I need one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we talk about Japan, how they do everything fucking right, especially when it comes to the coronavirus? Like we were there in February, and every single person we saw, very few exceptions, was wearing a mask.
You guys were the exception?
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, I remember you making fun of them in the chat. Like, look at these fucking idiots wearing the hazmat suits and shit.
Dude, it's true. We were so naive back then. We were so ridiculous.
We were. I'll be the
Look at
first
those
one
countries
to
now.
I'll be the first one to admit it.
Oh,
but I'm not a president, and I don't run the country.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have the right to be ignorant.
That's one thing I wanted to say, going back to what Ralphie said earlier about how, like, maybe they dropped the ball, but it's our first pandemic or whatever. Like, yeah, I think we should give them that. Like, if a house fell on if a tree fell on my house right now, and somebody could say, well, why didn't you cut it down? It was obviously, because there's a million other things that I need to focus on too, and I just wasn't thinking about it. But the thing is, like, what I saw from at least New Jersey's governor is like, he was like, all right, we're going to have a plan. There's all these phases. We're going to do this and that. And, he at least laid out like cohesive messaging. The whole thing about like quarantining when you come from a certain state, it's all just a math equation. Like if that state's cases go above X level, then you're on quarantine. And they just got a system together. And I feel like I would have loved to see that from the federal government, but we got none of that. It was just like conjecture and Trump saying that it's overblown because I don't even actually know probably what his motive for doing that was, but I would have if we had like a strong leader, I think everybody would have been more on board. Like it could have been a patriotic thing, like wear your mask, help out your fellow American. Like it could have been an easy way to spin it. And
this could have been one of the
easiest.
Do
Americans care about their fellow American, though, dude?
Well, historically, we've come together in a time of crisis, and this
could have
agree
been
with Walter. We could have certainly done that.
Yeah, this could have been one of the easiest political wins for Trump in his presidency, and instead it's turned into a giant ass L for him. To the fact point that he's gotten COVID this weekend, which is so recent I didn't even have it in the outline because this is how fucking quick all this shit is going. But like this could have been the easiest win for him, even with, I want to say this, I mean this might sound a little callous, but even with the 200,000 deaths that have taken place, even just a change in tone and some form of leadership, just showing, the care about it, would have boosted his numbers. Like it's hurt it's hurt his chance for re-election so much that I don't even know if he can recover from it, especially now that he got sick.
To give credit, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I'm done.
I was just going to say, I remember he gave one press conference that really impressed me. It was early on. I don't remember what turned him around, but it was only days after he was tweeting that it wasn't as bad as the flu and Hannity was saying that it was a hoax or whatever. But he gave that first press conference and he sounded very presidential. He took it very seriously. He was saying like, we all got to. And then I was like, wow, like this is all I've ever wanted from you, Don. Like this is great. And then like it wasn't like a week after that he just fucking flip-flopped on it. So
yeah, that's true. There was like a 2 or 3 week window in there where I thought, okay, he's kind of like he's finally taking it seriously. It was after he called it a hoax, but before the whole anti-mask thing. But I was like, okay, he's taking it a little seriously. Like you said, like this is kind of what you want. And then it just went off the rails. Yeah, but overall, it's like it's similar to that what they said on Fox News about his white supremacy, not denouncing it, and during the debate, is he just missed the easiest layup ever. Like if there's one thing that's going to boost your political numbers, it's guiding our country through some form of crisis, whether usually that's an external threat or some war thing. But
Even Bush got credit for
Bush and 9/11.
9/11 the response.
Yeah, huge
Giuliani was mayor of the year in Time magazine with
Yeah.
the 9/11 response.
And
Now
it's
look at that motherfucker.
Rudy Giuliani. Think about that.
arguably worse than Trump to me. I cannot stand that guy.
So annoying. I think
So-
with Trump, like all he really knows how to do is just serve his base. And I think a lot of his base is like anti-maskers and didn't take the virus seriously, or they live in like fucking Iowa or West Virginia where there's like no cases because there's no fucking people there. Like all he really knows how to do is serve his base. And I think that's where he gets himself into these predicaments.
I think
That's why he changed his tune from like when you guys were talking about how he suddenly changed his whole tune on the coronavirus. And
It's like he's directing the base though. Like his ego emboldens everybody else. When he says like, well, maybe we can just put bleach in the body or we can get a UV in there. Like everybody else who likes that about him is now emboldened to say, oh yeah, fuck science. I'm smart too. I can figure this out. They're all lying. They don't need to listen to them. I can figure this out for myself. Or, so I think he kind of brings that out in people where people aren't afraid to just go out there and say, I think I'm smarter than the CDC because Trump does it. So, and he's my role model or whatever. That's how I see it.
Yeah, he's really spurred that whole anti-science theme in our country right now, with specifically around, this disease. I mean, you can go back. We've always had an anti-science side. Like the flat earthers, the anti-vaxxers, but this is just another example of that, and it's showing how it's a danger to the whole society. And I would say even the majority of people who believe the science are wearing masks. Even the people that do shit on it, they still are complying and going out and wearing masks. Like they're not some tough guys going into places without their mask on because they get fucking thrown out. So
have you guys seen any of those people? Have you encountered any anti-maskers?
I know people on my social media timeline, but not in person. I was really hoping to see a couple of them in person just to shit on that. I had this idea that I'd be at Whole Foods buying groceries, and I'd see that, and I'd just take some raw, just shredded beef and just chuck it at them. Just do the whole Always Sunny thing, get out of here, and just chuck roast beef at them, just to be super. Or you just dump water on, just something to make them look even stupider. But in the moment, I probably wouldn't have done that.
I hate the masks. I'll be the first one to admit it. I fucking hate wearing them, but I wear them because I feel like that's my duty to do so. But I'm not going to go out of my way to chastise somebody who's not wearing their mask. You know what I mean? I'll just socially distance. But
Yeah.
just keep it away. You know what I mean? Because the majority of people are wearing their masks. I mean, there's some people out there, I guess, that refuse or whatever. But if they don't want to wear a mask, then fuck them. They'll get sick, and I won't. You know what I mean? I'll just stay away from them. And
that's not even how it works, though. The thing about not wearing a mask is that really you're just endangering other people, not really yourself. That's
I agree, but I mean, it's I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it helps to get on somebody's case because they're not wearing a mask. You know what I mean? I don't think that's helping anything. I think it's just kind of pissing them off more, and it's just going to be you know what? Fuck you. I'm really not going to wear my mask now. You know what I mean? I don't think it's helping.
Is it even a government thing for these? If you go into Walmart, right, and they say you got to wear a mask, is that the government telling Walmart you have to require masks in your store? Or is it Walmart saying, look, if people aren't wearing masks, they're not going to want to come into our store, and we need to have as much business as possible? Is it on each business to decide, or is it actually a federal mandate that all these stores have to require masks?
It has to be a mandate, because if it wasn't, nobody would require that shit down here.
Jersey's is mandate. I know that.
I think it's a statewide mandate. I don't think it's federal, but I think state by state, depending on industry and how many people you're getting in there.
I feel like it's got to be federal. Just based on my experience, dude. Really?
I don't think so. I mean, Jersey's real strict. You go to Pennsylvania, they're not so strict. You know what I mean?
I saw somebody posted something, and there's like a store that said, if you're wearing a mask, we'll refuse service to you.
Okay.
Like, okay, guess I won't buy my guns here, because that's probably some gun shop or some shit like that. But
That's so stupid, dude.
it's a whole point of pride. I mean, it's and I don't want to shit on people too much, but I'm gonna say it.
I will.
The people that are being like anti-mask and all the huge Trump support, I'd say 90% of the ones I see on my social media are the fucking dumb people I knew growing up. They're the idiots. They're the people that didn't pass classes in school. They're like fucking idiots. Like they were not smart. They're just dumb. And I think that's just a symptom of what our country is. Like it's really annoying. And like, it's one thing to kind of quietly be anti-mask, but to then shove these conspiracy theories on a daily basis about how it's like some hoax is like just idiotic to me. I just can't imagine being that dumb.
Social media, man.
Yeah.
I think they think that they're tough and that we're all like terrified of the virus. Like I know if I get it, I'm gonna be fine. I don't give a fuck.
It's
just
not
do
given,
it.
Though. Like you might not.
It's
That's
true.
A scary thing. Like it.
Yeah, but it's a calculated risk that I'm not worried about. Based on the numbers that I've seen, I'm not afraid of it. Genuinely, I'm not. But it's just the right thing to do, and it's not that hard. So I think they conflate wearing a mask with being a little bitch, and really, it's just not being an asshole at the end of the day.
I was gonna say, as far as your comment about how stupid people are, I don't disagree at all. I actually think people are just really they're so impressionable. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of it, I think, comes from social media. Like you just have like, and it's not just kids. It's not just like stupid people. These are like grown adults and like people who have careers and who are very successful in their lives. And they just spread this misinformation, these ridiculous conspiracy theories, these horrible, dumb ideas, and people just fucking eat it all up. They just gobble it up, and it just spreads and spreads and spreads. It's literally virus. It's literally viral. You know what I mean? As they call it viral for a good reason. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could stop that unless you just monitor Facebook or whatever, but.
I definitely want to talk about that at some point, but I want to wait till we get Arnold in here because I know him and Ralphie, I think, have more like I know he's really strongly against like that moderation of like what's being posted on like Twitter or Facebook and stuff like that. Like should it be taken down? Should it be flagged? So I definitely want to talk about that when we get him back in here at some point. But it's a good point. And I think that's kind of it leads to people not trusting the government, all the misinformation that is out there. But the thing that I always say was like it's kind of like common sense because like one of the things I would hear about the masks was like, well, they only if it's less than like 0.03 micrometers, whatever that size is, I can't remember what it was, but if it's less than like 0.3 measurement, then it's not going to stop a virus from going through. And I was like, well, yeah, it is. It's going to fucking stop like 99% of it because they're going to hit the actual cloth fabric that's there. Like it's not, there's a thing there that's going to stop it.
Dude, do you ever hear the one that's like, if you can smell a fart, then the mask doesn't work? It's like, yeah, but the person's not wearing a mask on their asshole though.
I saw one. Dude, they're going to come out with ass masks.
Ass masks.
Oh, dude.
Let's do it.
Podcast branded ass mask.
Podcast branded. You heard it here first. Copyright ass masks. We sent them with like cinnamon flavor. So you like cinnamon dookie.
It's got to be so exhausting and so scary to be bought into all these crazy conspiracy theories. It just looks so exhausting. Like the world is not that crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's a crazy world. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that crazy. You know what I mean? The Earth is not flat, you idiots. And like you're you're this one guy. What was the guy? I can't remember what his name was, but he built a rocket to prove that the Earth is flat. He got in his homemade rocket and he blew himself up. You know what I mean? Like it's just like just think about his mental state and his duress. Like he was dead set. Like the Earth is fucking flat. I'm building this rocket. I'm sitting my ass in this rocket that I built. By the way, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I built
I
this.
100% agree with
You know
you.
what I mean?
But to be fair, he did have one successful launch before that he survived. So he.
Define
Yeah, I think that was
successful. Where'd he end up?
That was his second. I think that was his second launch.
Because he survived doesn't mean it's successful. You know what I mean?
But my point is like that guy. Like I kind of feel bad for him. Like he is so anxiety ridden because he truly believed in something that most people. Well, I can't even say most people, but scientifically proven doesn't exist. And I feel like there's a lot of people who believe in conspiracy theories. Like it's got to be exhausting, man. Like I would hate to live like that.
My favorite was in the beginning. Remember, like Tom Hanks was like the first big name that got sick.
Yeah.
And then everyone was starting to say it's because of like the Hollywood pedophile ring. And they started calling him a pedophile, and that's why he got sick, so that he can go quarantine somewhere else. And it's like
Pizzagate.
Diddle children.
Yeah, like it was like that's all that.
It's all part of the master plan, dude. Wake up, sheeple.
That's the whole cue.
It's
Are
so
you-
ridiculous. Doesn't that sound exhausting? Like you're
It
constantly
is, man.
viewing
It's
this shit,
paranoia.
thinking about it, wondering about it, worried about it. Some guys taking like matters to no hand, like the one guy who went into this pizza joint that they thought that was the pedophile ring and brought in AR and started shooting up the place. Like Jesus Christ, like man.
Yeah. I mean,
Take a
it's
blunt, bro. Like I'm not even into weed, but like relax, dude. Like
wow. That's a big
What the
statement
fuck?
from Donny there. That is a big time
have a
statement.
drink, bro. Like seriously, maybe you should try something else. Develop a habit. Get addicted to something, but not this.
Do you think?
I saw a video from a neuroscientist that kind of broke down the brain differences between liberals and conservatives, and it was it's an unbiased thing. They're saying like, okay, so liberal brains are larger in this one segment. I don't remember what the fuck it was called. And conservatives are larger in this other segment. Liberals are more open to new, novel information. Conservatives are more loyal, but they're also more like willing to make fear-based decisions. So I think that like kind of paranoia is more a right-wing thing. Because I think everybody knows this one guy who's like thinks that the government's going to come for them. And that's why they have to stockpile all these guns, because one day there's going to be some tyrannical... The right-wing thing, there's a lot of these weird paranoias, and I think that's also played out in this virus with all these conspiracies about like Bill Gates and the 5G towers and all this weird shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's
So much to unravel with this. I didn't even think of that. It's like, do you think that they think like that, like the people that are like us that are wearing masks and pretty much believe COVID's a real thing and is as dangerous as advertised? You think they look at us as the ones that are being paranoid by like the common cold?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it's
For
got to
sure.
they like because how strongly I feel my way. I can't imagine them changing their minds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're equally dead set.
It would take someone that they care about getting sick or dying from it, which is what I hoped would happen when Trump contracted
Right.
COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That the base would be okay. Our savior's sick. He's even admitting it's COVID.
That kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Is a lot of Trump supporters, like they live in the middle of the country or they live in like rural towns where the population density is so much lower, so they don't see as much of the cases. Like they're not seeing it firsthand. They don't have friends who got it. They don't have family members who got it. Whereas, most Democrats or left-leaning people live in major cities and more populated regions where you can see it firsthand. Like it's part of your life. So I think that's also a big component of it, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a big thing I'd heard from people in Ohio. They'd be like, well, I know this nurse that's worked and they haven't had any, patients. And I'm like, I know someone that's worked that sees, 6 COVID patients a day. And that's just her patients that she's checking on, not everyone that's in the hospital. And the thing I'm worried about the most of it like kind of what you were saying, Walter, is it's not really for me, but it's like my parents, you know, they live in Ohio, which has done okay. I mean, Governor Mike DeWine was actually one of the more strict Republican governors on closing things off in the beginning. I don't know how that is now. I'm actually flying there on Saturday, so we'll see. But I know the people in Ohio are probably loosened up, and I know a lot of people were really upset with him for the restrictions he was putting in there. And for me, you know, I just worry about my parents or my grandmother who's in a nursing home. Last week, Trump had COVID or got COVID, and then seemingly half the White House or his inner circle has gotten sick. More people have COVID in the White House than New Zealand, Vietnam. I just want to know, what were your guys' first thoughts when you found out Trump had COVID?
Poetic
Subsequently,
justice.
through this week.
Yeah.
You say
that was
justice?
hilarious.
Poetic justice.
Yeah.
My first thought was, please don't die. Not because I really care about the dude's life, but just because if he does, it's like we just got done talking about all the paranoid conspiracies that could be out there. Think about how easy it would be to spin it this way, right? So like all of Trump's supporters think that he won the debate and he crushed Biden, like that's because that's what he said, so they all believe that. So like how easy would it be for them to just say, oh, well, obviously the Democrats poisoned him or murdered him because he won the debate and they could, you know, the deep state needed to secure the White House. It would be so easy to get there. And I feel like that would be so damaging for half the country that already believes a lot of outlandish shit that I don't know, man. Like, think about how many people think that, you know, JFK was killed by the CIA or whatever. This is way easier to just say that Trump was assassinated by George Soros or whoever the fuck. That was my biggest concern.
The only people who are going to buy that shit are the people who are too far gone and are like fully committed to voting for Trump anyways. It's not like people who are on the fence are going to believe that bullshit, in my opinion.
Yeah, but not even like just voters, but just like, I don't know, man. If they really think that there's some kind of deep cabal of pedophiles, deep state, that are assassinating their hero or whatever, like they could do some crazy stuff. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't trust it.
Yeah, I agree. The whole stability, I think, you know, I mean, I don't wish death upon anyone, but honestly, I was like, I don't really care. Like, if it happened, it happens. And that's like the whole thing that I said in the chat was, it's like, that's what happens when you're a shitty person or perceived to be a shitty person, is that if something bad happens to you, people don't care about it. Like, so I didn't care about it, but I do agree with Walter that him passing away, that instability that would be there, the fallout from that, especially in the time this country's in right now, would be, I think it would incite just more chaos, honestly. So, you know, and I do wish good health. I mean, I'm not going to say I wish he'd die, but I think it is poetic justice, though. You know, maybe some longer term consequences from it. But, I mean, okay, 200,000 people died under his watch as president. And could he have prevented all of them? No. Could he have prevented maybe even half of them? Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell. You just look at these other countries that have done a way better job of handling it, have had exponentially less deaths than we've had. Like, our number of deaths is just an exponential increase compared to other countries of, you know, varying population sizes. So,
all right, I'm gonna break the mold here. When I first heard about Trump getting coronavirus, I thought it was fucking hilarious. And honestly, like, if he died from it, I would laugh. I would fucking laugh. I wouldn't feel bad at all. I don't wish him good health. Fuck him, dude. But at the same time, I won't go so far as to say I hope he dies, because I think that's a little much. I will say that's a little much. But am I going to say, oh, I hope he gets better? Fuck no. Fuck that. Honestly, I think he should suffer a little bit. And the reason I say
that's
that,
fair.
I mean, the two stories that killed me the most about Trump on this response is, first of all, that he knew the risk. He admitted that he knew the risk. Like, there's recordings of him saying, like, oh yeah, this is serious. Like, this isn't just the flu. And then he went out and told the whole public, like, oh, it's just the flu, like, don't worry about it, because he didn't want people to panic or whatever. That's strike one, which is already enough. Fuck him for that. And then the other story was I don't know, they were going to send out masks, like cloth masks, to everybody in the country, and the White House like ended that, and they rejected that initiative.
I didn't know that.
Also to prevent panic.
When was that going to happen? Do you know?
I believe it was around April.
Oh.
So for those two reasons alone, fuck Trump, dude. Like, honestly, I'm glad he got fucking COVID, and I hope he feels like shit. To be honest, like, I hope he gets a little bit scared. I hope he gets a little taste of like impending death, because I think he does deserve it. I really do. Think he does.
You are kind of convincing me a little bit.
I agree
in that way. I mean,
I agree, and I would go a step further, but
do it. Say it.
No.
Say it.
Let's hear it.
No. I will say this though. This I will say. So Trump got sick, got COVID, and then Joe Biden's wife comes out and says, "This is not about politics. You need to wish him good health."
Yes, dude.
That pissed me off so hard, because if the roles were reversed, there's no fucking way Donald J. Trump would be going out there saying, "We wish Joe the best health. Hope he turns around." That would never, ever happen. And it kind of goes back to. It just kind of goes back to I can't remember which podcast was the first one or second one I did with you guys. We were talking about how the Republicans, are unified and Democrats are just pussies. Perfect example.
Yes,
Perfect
dude.
example right here.
I think we brought that up in the chat too, right?
We did.
Like that's what we were saying. Like, yeah, it's a perfect example of that. Whereas I don't think we should have stopped the ads. Like, I'm
I'm gonna stop attack ads. What do you think Trump's gonna stop his attack ads? He's probably gonna ramp them up, dude. Like,
that's what he did, dude. The day when Biden stopped putting out those attack ads, I got so many freaking Trump ads on YouTube. I even got some texts, and they were like the most savage attacks against Biden. Like, they were showing clips of him, like back when he was like talking, like saying how he wanted to cut Social Security and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like actually good ads, and they were very savage. Like, Trump stepped it up while Biden toned it down. So it only proves your point, Donny. It only proves
ridiculous.
Your point.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there, Donny.
Whatever Trump gets, he fucking deserves. And I hope it's a speedy process. Let's put it that way.
I don't. I want him to suffer a little bit.
That's why I say, long-term consequences. All right. I just want long-term consequence. I want a peaceful transition. Hopefully, transition.
Dude,
We'll see.
It's not gonna happen.
That ship has sailed, my man.
Well, not peaceful, but
none of this is going to be peaceful. None of this is going to be easy. It's not going to happen.
But I do agree with Walter, though. Like,
the easiest transition is if he disappears off the face of the planet. That would be the easiest transition.
I kind of agree with Walter there. I think that people would view him as a martyr. I think that people. He's literally a cult leader. He is a cult leader. People will fight for him even after he dies.
I don't know about that, man. I think if he goes, I think a lot of those beliefs will go too. Because like you said earlier, Walter, like you said earlier, like he kind of is the ringleader of these, these wacky beliefs and stuff like that.
I'm just sick of the clown show, dude. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
He is probably going to be fine though. And that's one thing I wanted to bring up too is like, we actually know more about the virus now, and it's still deadly and it's still a big deal. But like when I was really first involved with it in March, like there was so much unknown about how many people it was killing, and the death rate was assumed to be something between like 5 and 8%. I think now we know confidently that it's less than 1%, and again, that's still a lot. But there's a lot of people who are still acting like it is that 5% number, and we still got to be cautious. But at the same time, like there's a lot of calculated risks that we take in life. Like every time you get on the highway, you're taking a risk. So as far as opening back up, I think it's going to be okay to do that going forward as we like have better treatment for it and as we know how to deal with it better. It's not the same thing that it was in March, and I think a lot of people don't realize that.
That's true. I think that what the whole point of like quarantining and social distancing in the early months was to allow our healthcare system to catch up and to be prepared for it. Yeah, if with things opening back up, though, I am still worried, like with like the older people, because they're vulnerable, and if they get sick, they have a much higher chance of passing away. And then who are older people hanging out with more often than not? Other older people. And I disagree 100% with that whole sentiment of like, well, the business is more important than these people's lives. Like, because, hopefully someday we'll all live to be that age. And I don't want my president saying that about, people in my age group.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah, it is something. Well, it is something, like you said, like we'll have to just learn to live with. My sister's been saying that for a while. I mean, she's very pro-mask and everything, but
right.
it is something that we're just going to have to be living with. I'm still kind of hoping for a vaccine before I really let my
That
guard
would be
down.
nice.
I think it is kind of becoming more of like something we're just living with versus something we're afraid of.
One thing too is like, it's a shitty fact, and I hate to even admit it, but the fact is, when you're talking about businesses versus human lives, like we do as a society, we put a monetary value on human life all the time. Like this goes into the healthcare debate, and it's like, I mean, think if we didn't, like we would treat every single airplane ride like it was a space shuttle launch, but it's not fiscally possible, or it's just not achievable. So I don't know. At a certain point, like if we don't get a vaccine that works, and we're gonna just have to go on with our lives, and that's a scary thing to me too. I don't know.
That kind of goes back to what I was saying too, like how in the East, like in Japan and China, like it is a part of their culture, like it's a part of their life. Like they wear masks pretty much just regularly, just even before coronavirus, just from their day-to-day lives. Like they're just aware of these things, and it's a part of their mindset. And I think that's something that Americans like we're gonna fucking struggle with, man.
I struggle with it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it sucks that we have to wear a mask and we have to walk around with these stupid things on our faces.
You got such a beautiful face, Donny.
Thank you.
That wasn't sarcasm. That was genuine, dude.
That was
It
genuine.
sounded pretty genuine, yeah.
A little tent down there. No, I'm joking. Oh god. Well, I don't know. What else we talk about with this? I mean,
piggybacking off of that, like
I know what you're talking about.
Americans are just selfish, and that's kind of what the American dream is, right? It's like you can just bust your ass, and you can make $1 billion, and you could just like have hookers on a yacht and do cocaine, and that could be your life. Whereas like the Chinese dream is like everybody is going to sacrifice, and the country is going to prosper. Like they don't put themselves first; they put a greater good. And this is like the communist versus capitalist thing. But as far as I think America's great and capitalism's cool too, but like as far as handling the pandemic, there's an obvious flaw in the way that Americans think, because we're not able to kind of get together and put ourselves aside for half a second to just do what we need to do, because the economy would be better off if we all just took it seriously and got it down. But we can't even see that far ahead. We're just thinking only of ourselves. So that's kind of what Donny was saying about Donny and Ralphy, about how America has a hard time with this.
It's a cultural thing for sure.
oh yeah, definitely.
I think the culture is going to change a little bit here, though. I think there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of this. I think people are going to start washing their hands a lot more. I think people are going to be socially distancing a little bit more, even if we do get a vaccine. I don't think you're going to be having people on top of each other all the time. I think stores are going to kind of limit how many people go in. It seems to be working, and I think people seem to like it. I like it personally. Instead of like a free for all at the grocery store, you have a single file line. They call you up, and I like that. You know what I mean? And I think it's maybe cleanliness and what's the word I'm looking for?
Hygiene.
Just being courteous. Courteousness is gonna courtesy. Right there you go. Is going to become more of I think it's going to become a little bit more prevalent after all this or during all this. There's still going to be groups that just don't give a shit, and But that's with anything in life. There's people that are against the grain. But I think after all this, it's going to scare people straight. And I think you're going to start seeing people, wash their hands after they take a dump. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You gotta wash your hands after taking a dump. I mean, I don't know who doesn't do that.
I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
Dude.
Not wash your hands?
Right, yeah.
Oh, thank God, dude.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand it if you're peeing every once in a while, like in your own restroom, but like...
No, it's disgusting. You should wash your hands. It's gross.
Well, yeah.
I don't wash my hands when I pee at home, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, because we're clean. My body's clean. Like, why?
God, your dick's not that dirty, dude.
You should wash your hands
Dude,
before.
you've been sitting on your balls. That shit is sweating. You're playing video games all day. It's filthy.
Your dick's so dirty. Your hands are way dirtier than your dick.
You should wash your hands before going to pee.
Well, there you go. If that's the case, then you should wash your hands. You should wash your hands. If your hands are dirtier than your dick, you should wash your hands. Just prove my point.
That's
so that means you should wash your hands. You should wash your hands before. That's straight from Dr. Nagy, dude. I remember that. That shit was hilarious.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, though.
It does make so much sense. You can't argue with it.
Yeah. No, my rule is public restroom, always wash my hands. I wash my hands every time now at home.
I wash my hands
now, but I admittedly didn't in the beginning. Or all the time when I was peeing.
You gotta build up your immune system somehow, dude. You wash your hands every 10 seconds.
That's why I bite my fingernails.
Well, there goes my theory of better hygiene.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think people are gonna change that.
Shows how much I know.
I do like what you guys said though about the Far East, like Japan and China and those areas, because they do have experience with it. They're well prepared. That's why their numbers were low to begin with. They got what happened in South Korea. The big wave that happened there was like one super spreader event, but beyond that, they really got it under control there as well. So,
and just to piggyback off that, I think the only thing Japan really did differently, because the way they shut down their economy was actually to a lesser extent than the United States, is my understanding. The only thing they really do differently is their culture and the fact that they all wear masks and they take those preventative measures without question. They just obey. They just do it. They don't care about their personal freedom or my liberty. You know what I mean? They don't care about any of that shit. Like all they care about is the common good. And that's the only thing they did differently. And just look at the numbers, dude. Like the evidence is all in the numbers.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on COVID? Well, we can touch back on it. I'm sure we're gonna have to do another update point on it.
Wait, before we wrap up, can I do one more topic about COVID?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know we just spent a lot of time shitting on conspiracy theories, but I wanted to know what you guys think about the actual origin of the virus, because at first I was like all on board with the wet market thing. But I watched Brett Weinstein on Joe Rogan, who's like an evolutionary biologist, and he knows a lot about this kind of stuff. And he actually made a really good empirical case for the fact that it's probably actually more likely that it did come from a lab accidentally, just because they happen to have those labs in Wuhan where they are experimenting on bats. Basically what they do is they've had SARS before, they've had these kind of coronaviruses, and I think what they do is they modify them and they play around with them in the case that, one jumps from an animal to a human. They want to be prepared for it. I think it's possible and maybe a little bit likely that this actually did kind of go wrong in a lab and hop out of there. When this first was going around, I was like, no, I wanted to shut it down because I thought there was going to be so much vitriol towards China and all that. But I don't know, man. I think it is, from what I've seen and read about, it's looking, and I haven't heard about the wet markets or anything like that in months. I guess people don't care anymore, but like, what do you guys think about that? And what are the implications if it was an accident and we do actually find out down the road that they fucked up?
What if it was on purpose?
That seems less likely to me, but I guess still possible, because why would they put it on their own people? Yeah.
Some people are saying like to thwart the protests in Hong Kong and shit like that. I'm not saying I believe in that, but that's kind of where that that theory comes from.
To me, I just don't care. Like, it's here. Let's
Right.
just deal with it.
That's
You know
fair.
what I mean?
I've kind of been on the boat, like, because I've seen people do that, like, especially like with Bill Gates thing, trying to link it back to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I was like, maybe look into it after we got it under control. Like, I don't care about it right now. Like, it doesn't matter where it came from right now when it's like ravaging the world. It's like I do care. Like, if we are getting fed misinformation, like, I think it is notable to know the truth about where it came from. Do I think we'd ever get that from China? No, but
No, never.
I think what you're saying makes sense as much as the bat thing does,
Right.
the wet market thing does.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I just don't care about where it came from right now.
Yeah.
If we want to tackle that at the end, like once it's under control, if we ever get it under control, or at least when things are more calmed down than they are even now, that's valid to start looking into that and start questioning it. I'm all for questioning it, but I just don't. It's not like a priority for me right now.
I worry that in like 5 years, we're going to get a whistleblower from the CCP that says, yes, it was them. And it's going to be the green light, the same way that 9/11 was a green light for us to go to Iraq. And we're going to turn our little Cold War into like a warm war. And that's what 5-10 years down the road. I don't know, man.
Not China.
That's concerning to me.
We do way too much trade with China to jeopardize that.
Yeah, I think we're too dependent on each other for trade. China depends on us as much as we do them.
Oh yeah. There's no way. I don't see that happening. I mean, I understand the possibility and the mindset of that, but not with China. And we're never going to get the story from China anyway. It's never going to happen. You know what I mean? People forget China's super duper fucking communist. And they control their citizens. They control everything their citizens do. We're never going to get. In China, you're not even allowed to show a picture of Pooh Bear because it looks too much like the Chinese prime minister. You know what I mean? Like it's an offense. Like they'll jail you for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. And that's like bullshit. There's so much crazy shit that happens in China. It's actually sickening.
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know about what's going on there. Like I that's another thing I do want to bring up too, is I hate the people calling it the China flu though, like as a way of just being kind of like racist or an asshole about it. Like it's actually easier to even say COVID. It's like quicker. So like they're just going out of their way to use that term. Like I know like we had the Spanish flu and whatnot, but it's the way it's used, and like the way why they're using that term, and that just like really pisses me off.
Yeah,
Probably as much as
it already had a name before it was ever called that, so that's how you know it's pure assholery, because it was already called COVID-19.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, any final thoughts on COVID? Like I said, we could always touch back on it. Hopefully, it's not around for too much longer. I do think that the quarantine, there was like that first like month or so, maybe not for you, Walter, because you were experiencing, COVID with your mom, but like when people call it the fun times of quarantine, like back when people are watching like Joe Exotic and
banging each other.
It's just like
that was during quarantine. Holy shit! This shit feels
like
too
years
long
ago, bro.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we've gone from that through, the civil unrest in our country, the protests. There's just been so much has gone on throughout this time frame. Yet we're still, at least I am, like working from home daily. I just hope that we get a grasp of it. I hope people really don't like the anti-science thing. I think that's something that it's just a nature of America, though. I think it's always kind of been that way. But just in this specific case, it's, I think, harming people in real time, and it's frustrating. But I just hope the rest of you guys stay safe through it, stay healthy, and it hopefully it goes away soon. But if not, and we at least are able to better handle it as a society and live with it, whether that's through vaccinations or just through what Donny was saying, like how we shop in stores or how we order food or eat at restaurants. So
Work from home.
work from home. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Final thoughts. I hate to always bring it back to Trump, but I think this is like the perfect example of why I didn't want Donald Trump to be the president and why I think he's a terrible fit for the country. Like I remember in 2016, I voted for Hillary happily because I just saw him as such a wild card, such a potential threat. And over the years, I started to calm down from that and thought, okay, well, everything's pretty good. He's probably not going to get into a war. He's probably not going to start a nuclear conflict. Like, how much harm can he really do? And then he got the perfect opportunity to show me exactly that I was right and that he could fuck something up really badly and let a lot of people die. It's just a perfect case for me to just say, wow, you really are a piece of shit. And I'm happy to not vote for you again. So
Yeah,
that's what's been on my mind lately with the election looming over us.
yeah, it's a good
But
point.
you wish him well.
I do. I just stay alive. I hope you. I want you to be miserable. I want you to suffer, but just keep hanging on so that you can lose.
I want him to go to jail for tax fraud. I think that can't happen if he dies from COVID.
True that.
I want
him to experience that big fat L in November.
Yeah, I want that big
Taste the
L. I want
music.
that long dick of the law to come down on him afterwards.
Yep.
Although I don't have much faith in that either. But Donny,
More likely once he's out of office. That's for sure.
oh yeah, Donny, Ralphie, final thoughts on COVID?
Go ahead, Donnie.
I just feel like, I'm all for free market capitalism. I think it's not a perfect system, but it's a good system. It serves me well personally. It served all of us on this chat show pretty well, I say. We've all done pretty well for ourselves and we're pretty successful in our own little ways. But in a time of crisis, when you really do need government intervention and you need somebody to step in, some people call it crony capitalism. In a time of crisis, when there's a state of emergency, I think you have to enact or have a plan and be able to enact certain powers in which overrides the capitalistic ideals. You know what I mean? I just think it's absolutely, we were talking about this, I think one of the first things we were talking about, or I brought it up, I can't remember. But talking about like the shortages of PPE, like it's just, I can't get over the fact that in a country of so many things, if there's one thing this country has is stuff. And we can't get the stuff that people need to the people who actually need it because of the laws of supply and demand. I think it's inexcusable. I understand, companies want to make a profit and they have a duty to their shareholders. I get that. I do what I can to make money. I'm a shareholder. I have a shareholder. I have my wife, and I get that. But in a time of crisis, we need to be able to react and temporarily circumvent our normal ways of doing things if it's for the better good. Yeah, that's it. That's my final.
Anything, Ralphie?
I don't have much. Just kind of want to reiterate the two things that the White House did wrong. Rejecting the initiative to send out cloth masks to everybody intentionally just to avoid panic, and also downplaying the virus when he in fact knew the risks involved with that, and the only reason he did that was again to avoid panic. So it's self-serving on Trump's part and the entire White House, really, his entire administration. So I think that's like really where if you're gonna blame Trump for anything, those are the two things to talk about. Because a lot of people say like, oh, it's just one man, like he can't fight an entire virus. Like, yeah, but there's things he could have done to mitigate it, and he didn't intentionally, and it's proven now. It's on record. So, fuck Trump. Glad he got the virus.
Not to mention, he just said that he was going to halt the negotiations on the stimulus bill until after the election. He's like, I'm going to focus on the Supreme Court because that's really pressing.
Yep, you can see where his priorities are. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the little guy. I don't know why I don't know where the fuck people got the idea that Trump cares about the little guy. I don't know
He's
where.
a New Yorker. Why do these people live in the middle of Casa Garajo voting for the New Yorker, a Yankee? What? What is
He's
that?
an atheist too.
He's a Yankee, dude. He's not stars and bars. He's
And
red,
he's
white,
an
and blue.
elitist. He's like a rich,
You know what I mean?
very wealthy elitist type
It makes
character
no
too.
sense. It makes people like me should be voting for him. You know what I mean? Not people in the middle of fucking nowhere. You know, thinking that he's their champion. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I think it just comes down to his rhetoric during his campaign in 2016. He ran a kick-ass campaign. He lied a lot, obviously.
Hillary was a shitty candidate in her own
And
right.
he was up against one of the worst candidates fucking imaginable. Can't stand Hillary.
The least likable
was like-
candidate in years, and she still won by 3 million popular votes.
Yeah, but not where it counts.
No,
Right.
but
The Rust Belt is why she lost. But anyway,
for sure.
that's beside the point. The last thing I want to say is, I think one of the most important things to look at is, I know I keep bringing it up, but I think the way Japan handled this is just so significant, and I think we can learn so much from just looking at other countries and how they handle these kind of things. And not just the government, but it's not even really the government that did it. It's just the culture of caring about the greater good, caring about the general population, taking little steps, little baby steps of putting on a mask just for the greater good. I think we can learn a lot as Americans from that sort of mindset. And it has nothing to do with communism or socialism. It's just being a decent fucking person. And I think Americans really need to step it up in that regard. So yeah, that's the last thing I want to say, I think.
Agree. Yeah, my final thoughts real quick. Fortunate, I still have my job. I haven't prospered as much as Walter during these times, but I've been comfortable. But I can't help but think of all the people that have been impacted negatively. I do have a lot of empathy for the people that have been put in that situation, and I think a lot of that goes back to what we all said: the lack of leadership from the top, the government. There's times when the government needs to step in, and they drop the ball on that. And I do agree too with what you said, Walter. Trump's leadership style, it's like, I imagine this is how he ran his businesses, and it's no surprise that he's been bankrupt so many times from them, and ran them into the ground, because this is just another example. Whereas if he was a CEO of a company, the board of directors would have fired him ages ago for this. I think someone, I don't know who it was, but you were talking about the judges as being a referendum on his legacy. That might have been you, Donny. I think this is even more so. With that being said, I think we all found common ground here. Obviously, we kind of are all in the same boat on here. That wasn't really much of a surprise coming into this. And that's actually comforting. I'd like to know that there's more of us are in agreement on the science, even though we maybe differ a little bit on certain smaller things. We generally are in the same boat here. I want to do cheers to safe health for fighting through these COVID times.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I agree with that.
Just want to say thanks for having me again, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always fun.
Bro. Anytime.
Come on back, dude.
News, politics, culture, current events. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground. We all have different views, but we stand on common ground.